I just got a notification that the recording is in progress.
Perfect. Okay, everyone behave.
Are you able to see my client?
Yes,
Okay, good, good.
absolutely.
So let's start.
Well,
So,
actually,
mhm.
let's start with what I'd like to start with, actually. So if you can, this is good that we have this up, but Julio, can you please bring up an internet browser? And I'd like to go directly to the Teleopti WFM wiki. Before we get started in the application, I want to talk a little bit about this process at a high level.
Give me 1 second.
Sure.
You say you want me to bring the web Teleopti?
I just need you to open an internet browser, and
Okay.
I would like to go to the Teleopti WFM wiki, please.
You say what was it?
It's wiki.teleopti.com. I believe that's the URL. I don't know that it's been changed yet.
There you go.
Perfect. Okay, so over on the left-hand side in the navigation page, see a section called Processes. If you expand that Processes section, it's about 2/3 of the way down on the left.
So it says.
And then please click on Forecasting. Then if you could just go ahead and maximize the browser window, I think that'd be helpful.
Okay. Let me see. I'm gonna make it a little smaller here because it's gonna. I have the entire screen in my. I can bring it up if we need it.
Okay, we do. Please maximize the entire window because I'd like to talk about it before we
Okay.
get into this application.
Can you see both?
Yes, but Julio,
Yeah.
would you please, that internet browser is the only thing I care about right now.
Okay. So you only want the internet browser. Okay.
Please, if you could just make that full screen.
Okay.
Very good. Excellent. So before we get into the forecasting module, I do want to take a look here at the forecasting process from a high level. So we do have several steps here. If you could scroll down just a little bit, Julio, I want to be able to get that entire image on the screen. Okay. And we do have, sorry, David, are you making a milkshake right now?
No, no, no. I've got a mechanical keyboard. I'll mute
Okay,
myself.
that's okay. Okay, thank you. Um, so as we can see, the main forecasting process right here is 5 steps. We have to create a skill, which is where the skill is what gets assigned to the agent. We select our forecasting channel, like inbound telephony or email or chat. The interval length is actually already going to be predetermined by your install. Your service targets, like your service level or handle within time. Then we have to create our workload. When we create the workload, we select the queues from your CTI platform. We set the hours of operation for Monday through, or for, sorry, all 7 days a week, whatever they're going to be. And then after we do that, we have to go in and prepare the skill and prepare the workload. So when we prepare the skill, we're just reviewing all 7 days of the week, looking at what is your service level seconds, your service level percentage, and then your different agent behavior targets and assumptions, occupancy, shrinkage, efficiency. And then we go into prepare the workload. Now, preparing the workload is the largest step of our forecasting process. That's where we go in and look at the historical data for the past month, year, 6 months. It really depends on how far into the process you are. Generally, when you're preparing the workload initially, like you did in configuration workshops with Tori, you're looking at probably at least a year of data. But then as you move forward, you only need to look at your most recent historical data, because when you're doing data validation, the big question you have is what I've seen in the past, what I expect to see in the future. And of course, that's just one question, but it's going to take us a lot of time to get through that question when we look at preparing the workload, just because it's the detailed part of our historical data validation. We then look at long-term seasonality and intraday call arrival patterns in our workload day templates. After we've gone through all 4 of those steps, we will open the forecast, we'll apply our intraday templates, and we'll look at the forecast on a more detailed level, and take a look at the projections that have come through based on our historical data validation and see if we need to make any additional adjustments. Now, what I will say is that the first 2 steps of forecasting, you usually only complete once. You only have to create the skill and create the workload one time. So that is most likely already done. Preparing the skill is something that happens if you have a service level adjustment, or maybe you're changing some shrinkage or efficiency targets. But generally, you won't be preparing the skill very often. So really your main business as usual forecasting process is to prepare the workload, or look at the historical data, check out the seasonality, and then take those assumptions and apply them to a new date range and go ahead and work with your detailed forecast. We are going to go through all this, but the first thing I want to do is go, you can see there's a few lines above this image. We have one that says preparations before starting in the forecast module. If you could go ahead and click on the word preparations. It's up a little bit higher. It's almost at the top of your screen, Julio. Perfect.
There?
Yep.
Okay.
So if you could click on that preparations link over to the left,
Okay.
and that's going to bring us to a new page. Okay, so this box right here with these items are items you need to handle before doing anything with the forecast. And a lot of these are things maybe you've done a while ago, but I think they should still look familiar. So only activities that require a skill will be able to be connected to a forecast. So we've created activities and we've set them to require a skill.
Yeah.
And now in forecasts, we have to look at how to group the queues into workloads and how the workloads need to be grouped into skills. And so the word queue, the word skill, they sometimes have, everyone hears them in contact centers and in WFM, but depending on what system you're looking at, they may have a little bit of a different meaning. So in teleopti WFM, a queue is where the calls are coming through, or it's where the emails are being processed. But it's essentially what is managed in the CTI platform, and that's where the volume starts to flow into a queue. One queue or a set of queues will make up a workload. The workload is where we adjust, is where we look at call volume, handle time. That's where we look at historical data. That's where we look at our forecast. But the workload is really all about the traffic that's happening. And the workload then gets connected to a skill. The skill is where we're managing our service level, our assumptions, occupancy, efficiency, shrinkage. And those skills are what are connected to the agent. So I know this is something that you've reviewed before, but I wanted to go just a little bit further into that before we got started. The examples down here are really great. We don't need to read through those, but this forecasting process page, the page we were on before, is a fantastic reference for this entire forecasting process.
Gotcha.
So any questions before we head into the forecast module?
Not as of right now.
Okay, perfect. So let's go ahead and we can minimize the browser and let's go ahead and take a look at the client.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, before we get started, can you tell me a little bit about your 3 customer service skills that you have set up already?
Yes.
General, General 2, and Spanish.
So this right here is, so this what happened at one point when we were doing the workload about maybe three or 4 months ago. I completely by mistake erased entire customer service workload or queue in here. Sorry, skill. So I have to call you guys and talk to some, me and David called this guy, I forgot his name, and he was able to restore it. So that's the old one. I haven't erased that one because I don't want to make the same mistake again. But this is the one that I normally use because this is the one that has all the information. This is the one that I redid all over again. So I don't know if I'm able to erase that one or not, but I haven't erased it just in case. If I made a mistake again, at least I have a backup one. That's why you see a general and then you see a general too. That's just the whole reason. But if I'm able to erase it, that's not an issue. I can free that space from there.
Yeah, no, and if you want to, I mean, I understand your apprehension about getting rid of the data. It's not going to impact your forecast if you're not using that skill. It's not going to impact the agents. But what you may consider doing, if you'd like to, for your comfort, is you can rename the skills.
Yes.
So the one you're working on the most is customer service general 2. You could just call that customer service general, and then you can rename the other one to like, you could put like an asterisk in front of it or something like customer service general old. That's up to you. We don't need to figure that out right
Yeah,
now. Something
I
I'll
gotcha.
have you do when we're done. But that could be helpful, especially because this skill name is present throughout the application. So if one of your team leaders is looking at intraday, they're searching for customer service general 2, but customer service general is also there. So that's up to you. Perfect. So if you could please, the tree that we have over here on the left, you'll see the top level is the channel. Back office, chat, inbound telephony, retail. Once you expand, which you've done here with inbound telephony, your first child is the skill. That's the light bulb.
Yes.
Let's expand customer service general 2, because that's the one you're working with. Now this is the workload level, and I think that's supposed to be like a little box or a stack of papers. I'm not sure.
Yes.
Like what I know is the light bulb is the skill, and whatever that little cube is the workload. Now let's expand one more time, please, on the workload. Okay. Now I know that we spoke about this a little bit before, and I don't want to really dig too far into the detail, but my understanding is that the way that TalkDesk is configured, you have volume coming in through a lot of different queues, and all of those queues need to be considered when you review the workload.
As of right now, yes.
Okay, perfect. So that the expansion, if you scroll up just a tiny bit on this Windows, you could see channel and then skill, workload, and then queue, which is the very bottom level. That's where the data begins for your forecast. Is that okay?
Yes.
All right, perfect. So as opposed to going through and creating a new skill and creating a new workload, we're going to review the data that gets input, that we input during those processes, just by reviewing the properties. So if you highlight customer service general to the skill level, please, and right click and select properties. So there are a few things that you cannot change after a skill has been created, and those are the interval length, the forecast method, the time zone, and the midnight break.
Okay.
Sadly, if you create a skill and you put it in the wrong time zone and you do some work on a forecast and then you figure out it's in the wrong time zone, you have to delete that skill and create it again.
Okay.
Pretty much everything else can be handled somewhere in the application. We can take care of it. So we have 3 dialogues here. We have the general dialogue where we're looking at the skill name, the interval method, the activity dropdown right there where it says phone. Those are only activities that we have denoted requiring a skill in the options section.
Correct.
And the abandon rate right here is an abandon rate assumption that is made. That's something that you can input because of the Erlang A calculation. Erlang C, the big difference between A and C in our calculation is that Erlang C ultimately forecasts for every single call getting answered. And we know that's not going to happen.
Correct.
I mean, it would be lovely, but this is to keep it real.
And I believe that 5% is just a default when we prepare the skill. We didn't change it at all. It just.
Okay, that is something that you can change if you need to going into this. Mike, do you have a question? Oh, you're still on mute.
Okay, here we go. So on this, we had the question yesterday because on some of the training videos, I see that there are templates where we can get much deeper. Is there a reason why we don't see templates in ours?
Oh yeah, we haven't gotten to that step yet.
Cool.
Yeah, they're on the way. This is just the initial, like the initial setup that we don't need to do, but I do want to run through it because it's valuable.
No, it's helpful. Thank you.
Let's take a look at the thresholds tab, please. Thresholds right here, this is something that you'll see reflected in your schedule. And what we're looking at is a data table in the schedules module that I'm sure you've seen. And we just want to know, this is where you set your conditional formatting values, if you will. So
Yes.
values that are 10% or more overstaffed will be shown in blue. Values that are 20% or more understaffed will be shown in red. Anything from 10 to 20 will be shown in yellow. And anything in between understaffing and overstaffing, so a plus to minus 10, will not be formatted, will not have any highlight. It'll just be shown as plain text.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and look at optimization, please. So right now, everything is set at a neutral priority, and we just want to look for right size staffing. These toggles are something you can use if you have maybe a line that is a higher priority. A lot of the times priority is set in the CTI itself. And when we're looking at forecasting, we're just planning for a standard effort across all skills. This piece right here, I generally recommend keeping it set right in the middle until we get all the way through to forecast, because this is a toggle that affects your forecasted values very early on in the process.
Okay.
Let's press OK, and if you could highlight the workload level, and we'll look at the workload properties. Okay, so on general, we just give it a name. We make sure the right skill is attached. Please look at queues. This is where we select all of the different queues that are going to be used for this workload. You do have a lot on this one.
Oh, yeah.
Open hours is your hours of operation. It's important that these hours of operation are set according to the time zone that you've used when you created the skill.
Yes.
So is this one in Pacific time? Am I crazy?
No, this one Eastern time.
Eastern time. Okay, cool.
Yes.
And then calculations. Again, calculations right here, these are all set at the default. But what we need to look at, what we're looking at here is every offered call that we take, is that something we want to use as part of our forecast? Do you have a team that we're allocating some portion of the volume to? You know, maybe if we're looking at a partner, yes, we have a full volume of like 100 calls a day, but we only need to be staffed to take half of that volume. So these are more high level. These are high level requirements that are usually set based on how your business runs. Do you have an overflow? Do we need to make sure, like, maybe we want to try and take all of those abandoned calls and forecast for like a better answer rate than we have? Again, these are set at the default values, I believe, and I would recommend keeping those there until we get into your forecast.
Okay.
There's a good explanation on the wiki about calculated calls as well. For our purposes, when we look at your forecast, we'll take calculated calls to be offered calls, and we'll see the forecast versus actual comparison. So let's press OK on this. And now if you could highlight the skill level, oh, it's already highlighted. Let's go ahead and prepare the skill. Step 3, if you're keeping track.
Yes, I am.
Okay. So what we have here are day templates for all 7 days of the week.
Okay.
And most of the time, forecasting assumptions will be the same 7 days a week at all hours of the day. So we start on Sunday, it goes Sunday through Saturday. Let's go ahead and click next, and that'll bring us to Monday. And what I'd like to do is if we do need to make a change here. So what you'll see is we have a shrinkage of 10% and an efficiency of 90%. Let's go ahead and let's highlight the shrinkage row here. And again, these are the same assumptions we're using for every day. If you right click, please, Julio, and select split. What you can do is make adjustments interval by interval for some of these values. So maybe on Monday morning or on Friday afternoon, your shrinkage is a bit higher, your efficiency is a little bit lower. This is a very specific detail to drill into. And what I will say is you're seeing that the chart here goes from, it's a full 24-hour span. It's 12 a.m. To 12 a.m. That's because our hours of operation are not set until we are working with the workload. Right now, we're working with the skill. However, these values are in Eastern time. So if you do have from like 9 a.m. to noon, you know that you want to bump up your shrinkage an extra 10% and drop your efficiency another 10%. That's something you could handle here.
Okay.
We also have seen contact centers where they're open 7 days a week, but maybe Saturday and Sunday, the service level is a little bit relaxed. This is, again, a great place for you to handle something like that. Let's go ahead and right click once more over the row that's highlighted, and we'll just select the option that says merge, because we're going to keep these values the same. And I know they show up like a little bit to the right of the beginning of the day, but these are the values for the entire day.
Okay.
So generally on these steps, we just click next until we can't click the button anymore, but they're going to be, these are the same values for all 7 days of the week.
Okay.
Go ahead and press finish on this. Now, before we get into preparing the workload, any questions so far about anything we've seen?
No.
And also,
Okay.
Tony, I know you have a wealth of knowledge, and I did not bring you here to just hang out. Do you have anything else to add? I think it's good to hear from more than one of us.
No, that's pretty straightforward. I do think I like being able to set the shrinkage and efficiency by day. I found that that's pretty useful. And it's exactly the situation that Brian talked about. Shrink is usually a little higher on those days because everybody likes the 3-day weekend. So, but other than that, these parts are pretty straightforward.
Yeah, that actually helped me a lot with because normally Wednesday and Thursdays are slow days.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And you would see that reflected, well, when we look at historical data, you'll definitely see that reflected in your distribution.
Yes.
Mike, before we move further, week 3, like any questions on the initial steps so far?
No, this is good. I've been watching the videos the last couple of days, so it's nice to see it all come together. So I'm good.
Very good. Yeah, I'm glad the Success Center is good. I watched those videos like for a couple weeks because I started and I was working from home immediately. So I was like, ugh, I held on to those real tight. Okay, perfect. So back, can we navigate back to the internet browser
Yeah.
where we had that forecasting process? Because I really like to lean on the wiki. I think it's a fantastic tool, but I think it can be very big and overwhelming. And I mean, it's a wiki, so it's huge.
Yeah.
But if we scroll down just a little bit to see the image, those first 3 steps we've gone through. They're pretty quick. Most of the time, you won't even be going through those. You may, after this, find yourself making some adjustments to the skill templates, especially once you have taken a look at the forecasted values. But these last 2 steps, prepare workload and open forecast, or our detailed forecasting, is where you will spend probably 90% of your time in this forecast module. Let's go ahead and before we get into preparing the workload, can you click the prepare workload link that's just above this image? It's in that list.
Here or that one?
Yes. No, the one up. Yes, right there.
That one?
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
No problem.
So prepare workload has 3 separate steps or 3 separate sub-processes within this main process. We have to validate the historical data. So we take a look at our historical data, our call volumes, our handle time, and we have to eliminate any anomalies. We have to check for any special events, and which makes sure that we're happy with the historical data that is going to be carried through to the rest of the forecasting process. The reason we do that is because after we've cleaned the historical data, if you will, everything we're doing from that point on is building on top of the data we've reviewed.
Okay.
We can still make changes once we get into the detailed forecast, but every assumption, every chart, every graph that we see going forward is based on that historical data. So it's a very important step. It's the foundation of your forecast.
Yes, sir.
After we go through validating historical data, then we create a long-term forecast. And we do that by looking at month of year, week of month, day of week patterns, and then we decide what dates are we going to create a forecast for to get our daily totals, our projected daily totals for our forecast. After that, we go one step further into the data by looking at our workload day templates, and that's where our intraday patterns are defined. So we'll look at, probably the past 8 or 12 Mondays and look at the curve on every single one of those Mondays and find out where our average is. And if we need to remove any of those days, maybe we had like a Monday that was like way off the charts and we don't want that to be working into our average. So there are 3 separate steps. I like to talk about them a little bit. So first, so that once we go into them, it's not, because it's a lot of clicking. It's a lot of data tables, a lot of numbers, but this is the biggest step of your forecast. So let's go ahead and jump into it.
Okay.
Let's go back to the client, please. And let's go ahead and prepare the workload. So right now, you're highlighting the skill level on Customer Service General 2. I would like you please to expand that and highlight the workload level. Then you can right click and prepare the workload. Fantastic. Okay. Generally, when you are validating the historical data, as I mentioned initially, you don't need to validate more than once. Because once you've cleaned your historical data, that's good. And sorry, Julio, is everything okay?
Yeah, sorry, I have people in the back. I apologize.
Oh, no, that's okay. Don't worry it. Everyone's at home right now. So,
Yeah.
So we don't have to validate the historical data more than once because
Okay.
once you've cleaned it, you're good to go. However, for purposes of this exercise, I want to take a long date range and look at that first without a compare period, and then we are going to add one. And we'll talk more about that. I know we talked a little bit about it last week, but we'll get into it a little deeper today.
Sounds good.
But for your validation period, can we bring that back to, let's do April 1st of 2019. Is that all right?
I don't think we only have as far as July 12th. I believe.
Oh, okay. In that case, let's start with September 1st. Let's do
Okay.
Q1 of last year or Q4 of last year. Well,
Okay.
4 months of last year. And then we'll do the first 3 months of this year. So let's make that through March 31st. And for the compare with period for now, yes, let's delete that and we'll press apply. All right, so first things first, I want to focus just on call volume.
Okay.
So in the chart, you can see that there's a key below the chart where there's check boxes checked.
Yeah.
Let's uncheck both talk time boxes, original and validated. And let's uncheck the ACW boxes as well. Fantastic. So these curves right here are representative of these, whatever, however many, 36 weeks, whatever, 38 weeks, whatever we've selected. And you can see your Wednesday and Thursday right here definitely being the low point. That's why you've got that, what I like to call in the forecasting world, the Batman curve. Where high on Mondays and Fridays, right?
Oh yeah, I see
Now,
that.
what's interesting too, I know that you're closed on the weekends, but it looks like that wasn't always the case for this skill.
Yeah, I don't know why we had some volume on the weekends.
It looks like you had volume on the weekends through
Yeah.
almost actually through about November, maybe the first week or two of December. And right now, I'm not focusing on the chart. I'm just looking at the image to get started.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure those went straight to voicemail. Of
Mhm.
course.
All right, fantastic. So either way, um, when we're looking at that data, we can see that that's an obvious pattern change. Also, I think it's good to zoom in on the graph and maybe scroll through it a little bit. So if you could, Julio, let's go to the left, right at that first curve, or that first week in September. If you can
Okay.
bring your cursor above the graph and then click, left click, and then drag just a little bit.
You say, let me see. Like
Left
that?
click and then drag.
Oops. Hold on. How can I get that back?
Okay, so there's a little, I don't know what to call it, but I mean, I usually call it a no smoking sign to the left of the scroll bar just beneath the graph.
You need to grab that right there.
Yeah, press that a few times. Okay, that's good.
Okay. Sorry. Maybe I
No,
went too far.
you did. So let's zoom in just a little bit more because I want to be able to sort of go, like scroll through this and assess and analyze and see.
Okay. So again, I have a Mac computer, so the mouse is a little different.
Okay.
So you want me to right click, I mean left click on this?
Yeah, and just highlight like about 6 weeks.
Okay. So
And then
let's
you
see.
can release and it'll automatically snap to zoom.
All right, so let's do about right here.
That's 3. Can we do a little bit more? No?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, just press the no smoking sign once and we're good. Cool.
Okay.
This will do. Um,
So 1, 2, 3, 4. Is that good enough? Do you want?
sure, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay. So what we're looking at here is only call volume, and you can see it's just original offered calls. Now, the difference between original and validated, like we spoke about last week, is original is what's coming directly through the integration, and the
Yes.
validated row is based on any adjustments you make here, and that validated row is what gets pushed through every step of the forecast from this point on. So that's your like cleaned data. Also, this is a good time to go back to deviations. Right now, our deviations are set at 10% for calls, talk time, and ACW. Can we go ahead and change those values to 20% just for now?
Yeah, of course.
Again, these will reset to 10% when you reopen prepare workload, but this is just a cosmetic value. It helps with the formatting. You'll see once we change that 10 to a 20, a few more of these original rows went from red text to black text because they're
Yeah.
20% of the average. So we can keep those 20, 20, and 20, please, in
Okay.
that deviations field over on the right. Thank you. So the first one's already correct.
Well, I guess it doesn't want to work for me. Sorry, I was trying to paste it, but I gotta do it the other way. All right, go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's all right. That's just fine. So now we have a 20% deviation. That's where the highlighting starts. So for example, in the data table below, September 9th, September 16th, September 23rd, those Mondays were within 20% of the average. And the average row right now is based on the entire period from September 1st, 2019 to March 31st, 2020.
Yeah.
Every Monday, like every day of the week. That's what those average values are being populated from.
Gotcha.
Now, what I think is good to do here is, since you have had a little bit of a change in the business practice, it looks like operating hours may have changed, or at least call volume patterns changed significantly. They're not coming in on the weekends anymore. I
Correct.
think our compare with period, let's for now make that the first quarter of this year.
Okay. So compare first quarter.
Yeah, so it'd be January 1st to March 31st, please. And what we'll see here as well is once we press apply, that the average values will change. And the numbers didn't change. The graph just like resyncs once we press apply. So we can see like the high point at the beginning of the month. And if you want to press, let's press the no smoking sign one more time just to pull out a little bit more on the graph. Okay, very good. Okay, that's good. Is that at the beginning of September, October, November, December, that first week of the month, that's where your peak volume is, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
that first Monday of the month is the day that we probably don't give too many people the day off.
Correct.
Right? Okay, cool. So again, just getting familiar with the interface, taking a look at what data we've seen in the past. Let's scroll a little bit in the graph. Let's scroll to the other side of the graph so we can see the first quarter of 2020. And then press apply once more, please.
Oh, plus. Okay.
Over on the right, yeah. Let's to get this graph to resize, let's bring talk time into it and then take it out. That should work. So selecting it.
Oh, sorry. Original
That's
talk time.
fine. I mean, either one. And if we take that off, we might just have to zoom out. Yeah, just press the no smoking sign and zoom out once more. And once more.
Maybe a little bit more.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, let's go all the way. I'm not sure why that's not adjusting. Tony, have you seen this before?
I have not.
If you can select March 31st over on the right, Julio, on the compare with period.
So sorry. Where? Right here?
No, in the drop down over on the right, just either one of those. What I want to do is like open that drop down, then just select the same date once more. And now press apply. I want the system to like refresh. Let's take offered calls off the graph and put it back on the graph as well.
Offer calls. Okay.
Yeah, something about this is it needs to refresh, and I'm not sure why it's not.
There you go.
There we go. Okay. Yeah, it's usually one of the toggles. All right. So again, if we focus just on really the last 3 months or the first quarter, we can see that our first week of the month is busy. I know January is a little bit of an anomaly because of New Year's Day, but we can see the volume start to trend back up. That first week of February is high, and the first week of March is higher than that. And these are expected.
Yes.
Right? Okay. So as we're looking at this, we need to go through the original values and make sure they're accurate. Now, first of all, I know you had mentioned that you had some questions about the data in your forecast, and this is where it all starts.
Yes.
So let's scroll. You're scrolling through the data table right now, which is fantastic. Let's just scroll all the way to the right, please.
I'm going to go back to the beginning.
No, all the way to the right. I'd like to go all the way to the end of this. I want to look at the most recent data because that will be the best in your head. So like the last couple weeks of March, of course, we have seen some call volume slowing down, just as you had mentioned.
Yes.
But are these values historically, like, are these accurate? For example, almost 2,100 calls on March 16th, about 1,500 calls on March 17th.
those are as accurate as we can tell right now. Of course, we are still working, like with talk tests to make sure we have the same information of calls. But as of right now, this is the calls that we can tell are accurate enough for us to go by.
And those were also COVID related. So we're seeing, like, you're pricing across the board. It's been very unpredictable day to day.
Is there a subset of data that you are more comfortable using, at least for now, on your forecast? So if you needed to pick, which we're going to do on the next step, you're going to be selecting a date range that we'll use to generate everything. Would it be maybe like January week 2 through the end of February?
Um,
I'm just looking at the graph. Go ahead,
yeah.
Mario.
No. I'm just trying to think.
And also another thing with this too is I don't want to base our forecast solely on marketing, planning, and activity, but that is going to be something that we're going to want to get into our forecast, given that they give us the right information.
Can you expand on that just a little bit, Mike? And then when we get to detailed forecasting, we're definitely going to need more info. But what are your, can I have like a for example on that?
Yeah, I mean, from my understanding, and these guys can correct me, is a lot of times marketing will send out emails. Everything's really app-based, so they're trying to push people to the app. Whether the person has not completed their quote, things like that, they'll do a lot of things around that. They'll maybe send emails to existing customers, but they maintain a calendar, and our hope is they're giving us all that information ahead of time. So we really want to make sure we capture that, but also we can see that there is going to be just a normal flow throughout the week that I really want to care about also.
Okay. Yeah. So we have what we're forecasting based on historical events, but then the additional layer is whatever timed increase assumptions we have from marketing. During May week 3, we're expecting a push of this much. Yeah, no, that's absolutely something we can look at in the detailed forecast. Something we also need to handle in data validation is special events.
Yes.
Special events are over on the right. The need for, or well, not the need, the functionality of special events is, there's 2 reasons we use a special event. We're either identifying days with abnormal data, whether we expected that or whether we did not expect it. So the 2 sides of that would be like a holiday. For example, I see you have, I think, Martin Luther King Jr. Day on here, New Year's Day, Memorial Day. We expect to have real low volume. Or are you even open on that?
We're closed.
You're closed?
Yeah,
oh.
We're closed.
Fair enough. But the volume that's coming through is something that we don't want to be counted into. Like, we don't want Martin Luther King Jr. Day to be part of the assumption for like every Monday. We need to get that eliminated. So the special event can take care of that. That's why it's highlighted green. Well, that's not why it's highlighted green. It's highlighted green to catch your eye, but that's what the functionality does.
Gotcha.
It'll be excluded from the forecast. Also, we can use special events when we're validating historical data, which Tony, what are your thoughts on this, like the month of March with sort of the COVID-19 impact? Because we can use it to identify historical periods that we really don't want to impact the future, but it's a lot of data to do that with. So go ahead, Tony.
A really quick note, actually, I was going to say that those marketing campaigns that you were just talking about, you could actually use your special events here to keep track of those days. So whenever those marketing events result in a weird spike of volume,
Yes.
whenever you're validating your data and you see that unusual spike that you don't really want factored into your formula over the long term, you can just go ahead and well, you could create a special event that's just a general marketing campaign event and then just add it to that day automatically. So the system knows not to factor your unusually high volume into your ongoing forecast. I actually have a customer right now who's using special events in that exact way. So I'm glad you brought that one up, Michael.
Ooh, that is a great, yeah, that is a great call because we're using it to get rid of any data that is not like business as usual, you know, or what we want to be in our baseline. So then I'll ask.
Categorizing it as a special event just makes it so it'll be a little bit easier to go back and track later as well. So you'll be able to come into your data and see that you had that special event on those days.
Exactly. Do we have any of those in Q1 that we know of?
I think in the beginning of March, I'm trying to think because they call it I think it was towards at the end of February or the beginning of March due to the income tax refunds. People were calling.
If we look at the chart, I can see that your highest call volume day looks like it was March 4th or 5th.
Yeah. I was looking at that earlier because we had like.
Click on the graph, it'll snap to the data table as well.
I got you. Okay.
Oh, there it is. So March 2nd is the date.
Wow, yeah, that's almost 1,000 more, over 1,000 more than
Look,
your average.
you see towards the end of February and then the beginning of March, that's when they did the marketing push, as I remember.
All right. So then Tony, what do you think? Those 4 days, including as a special event?
Yeah, you could definitely do that as well.
And then look at the make an update on that validated row.
Yeah.
Perfect. Let's do that. So,
just add a special event.
No, not right there, please.
Okay.
You can do that, but I want to show you a little bit of a better way. If you highlight the 26th, the entire day, and now right-click there and go to Add Special Event, what this will do is it starts with that day you have selected.
Oh,
so
great.
26 is already over there. So then, is this and we don't need to spend a lot of time right here, but yeah, you have like marketing push. Now, if this is like a spring marketing push and you have a fall marketing push, if we need to if those are different patterns historically, then you could rename these and use it a little bit differently. Right now, I think it's good with what you have. If you select the 27th out of the calendar there and then press the double arrow to the right, it'll go onto the list. Same thing with the 28th and then the 2nd. And now you can press OK. And this highlights your data, but also now, and this is just because I haven't looked at this for a while, Tony, we're using the special event to track like the trend of that special event throughout the data. But then I'm also updating the validated row here.
Yeah, I'm not really sure.
I don't know that we need to.
Yeah, I think when we indicate it's a special event, it automatically knows not to include those calls into our forecast those days.
We should be good then. Very good. So there's two different questions here, team, is do we need to just exclude the data or do we need to normalize it? So excluding it is that special event. Normalizing it is when
you have like an outage or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like a server breaks and nobody can access the website, so you get nobody can access the app, so you get a bunch of calls.
Okay. See, this is the thing, because marketing doesn't happen. It happens once in a while. It's not a very recurrent thing. So I don't know, but you guys can correct me, David or Mike. I don't think we should. Like, I think what we should do is not count it, and then when we are advised that a marketing push is going to happen, we can always go to the other part where we can increase the percentage of how much volume we're expecting instead of counting this, instead of making this like a normal call volume, which we know is not. But Mike, what do you think?
I mean, I was going to say normalize because we see it often, but also I saw Tony was agreeing with you, so I'm gonna get her input on that one.
Oh, well, I was just agreeing because that would definitely be so. Forecasting is a little bit of an art when it comes down to it, and there are a lot of different approaches that you can take that'll get you really to the same destination. So as long as you're internally consistent. So yeah, the way that Julio was talking about it is definitely one way to do it. Or alternatively, you could just go ahead and average that data in. Either way, you're still going to want to like build it into your forecast when you have those expected dates in the future. But honestly, I think either one of them will really get you where you're trying to go. You just need to pick which one you'd rather do. You can either average those days out, replace the validate. You validate the data and average it out to use your average over that period and include those days in your data, or you can just indicate it's a special event, however you'd like to track it. If you average those days out, though, you can't add it to that marketing push special event and track those days. It's a little hard to have that visibility.
I think for purposes of what we're doing today, it's good to be able to execute both of these use cases in the application.
Yeah.
So this is how we create a special event and why. However, thank you for your hard work on creating the special event. We are going to remove it, normalize the data, and perhaps this is a good time to leverage an offline knowledge base where you know, like, okay, this is when our marketing push came through. So what I'd like you to do, please, Julio, is highlight in the validated calls row,
Validated.
not the entire row, just the date of February 26th, 27th, and 28th. And then please right click over those. And then let's just hit use average. And what you'll see, if you look up at the chart, is the end of February, we see a little blue line, as opposed to the orange line. And that little blue line is a little more representative of what you would expect to see in a normal week. You know, it's like high on Monday, low the middle of the week, and a bit higher on Friday, but not as high as Monday.
Yes.
I think we can do the same thing for March 2nd. If we just select the validated call cell and then right click and use average. And again, so if you want to, you can go ahead and zoom in on the graph by clicking and dragging over that period. Yeah, that's good. So now, and you know, just for fun, let's press the no smoking sign one time because I like to have a little bit more of a picture. Cool. So we can see the weeks before and the weeks after. And let's go ahead and just turn off the original offered calls from the chart. And so now this is what your forecast is carrying through. Okay. This blue represents the validated calls row.
Now, just to be clear, validated calls just means that this is what the system is calculating, well, projecting my forecast to be.
No, this is not based on the system. This is based on the human.
My input, sorry.
Yeah. So the validated calls could equal, you know, call volume that Julio is comfortable relying on to prepare a forecast.
Gotcha.
The original offered calls, that would be what's coming through the integration.
Gotcha.
So I would have one point of entry for the integration, which is the original offered calls. And then validated calls is what we pull through to the rest of the forecast. After you have reviewed it and said, okay, I approve this, let's move forward with this set of values. So let's turn offered calls back on once more.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. How are we feeling so far about what we're doing with this data?
This is really great insight, something that I was not aware of. So it helps me a ton.
Yeah, no, feeling good. And I think the way that Julio explained it originally is probably the way we'll use marketing data unless something's really, really out of the norm. So that's a good plan going forward.
Well, and there is a spot when we do the detailed forecasting to account for the projection, because the marketing, the use cases are on both sides of that data before and after. Your input is preparing the forecast by making an increase on a specific day or week. And then when you go through and validating the data, you're going to normalize that trend to get it out of there, because marketing doesn't happen on any sort of like regular cadence, or at least these examples are not happening like, okay, it's like every March or every June. It's nothing like that right now.
Gotcha. And maybe I'm getting ahead of myself here, but let's say we know that the day after a holiday, we're probably going to have a high call volume. Now, the system probably is not going to, right now, since we don't have like a whole year of data, it's not going to cache that. So let's say our next holiday, which is in May, I forgot, May 25, I think it is, May 25th, the Memorial Day. If the next day, I'm pretty sure the system original offer calls or validated calls are going to be completely lower than what we might be expecting. How can I tell the system like, hey, since I don't have that data from last year, how can I tell the system here like, hey, I need you to increase this?
Oh, that's a great question. Hold on to that one for when we open.
Okay, like I said, maybe I'm ahead of myself.
That's okay. It's important to know. So, Tony, any other thoughts here on data validation before we move forward? I mean, we are going to look at talk time and ACW actually, but so far.
No, I think that really covers it for me.
Okay. Let's go ahead and from the chart, let's turn on talk time and ACW, because ACW is something we need to address. Let's turn off the calls, because I'll take those out of there for now. Okay. And can we zoom out on the graph, maybe just like once or twice? Okay. So what we're looking at here is, you can see those little blue bars for validated ACW. That's where we just added some ACW, but we need to add that for, I'm guessing I don't know if we have like an assumption for ACW that we can add on the validated row, because I think we said it wasn't being captured by the integration.
So I believe the last time we talked about it, we were having around 90 seconds average.
It looks like that's what the value is. And you can scroll to the left in the data table for February, because that's when there's data in there for it. Sorry, not
the bottom.
Yeah, in the data table, please.
Sorry.
That's okay. And February we've skipped, so we're looking for February 2020. It's going to be to the right.
I'm already on. Hold on. Oh my God. I'm sorry. I'm getting confused with the numbers. Sorry.
That's okay. Yeah, just look at the bottom row when you see those 90.
Okay.
We're looking
There you go.
Okay. So let's scroll to the right just a little bit, please, because there is actually a row, I think, of actual data in here.
There you go.
Yeah, so right here, perfect. So week 8 of the year, the week starting February 16th, we can see that I believe those are just assumptions, 90s across the board. Yes. But then the final week of February, were these values added?
I add this myself from the average. I looked at each of those days and I saw the average and I just added them.
Perfect. And so this ACW is, I mean, it looks like it's around 20% of your full handle time. Yeah. So a difference of 15 to 20 seconds at this level will make a difference in your forecasted need. So, however, it is up to you how you want to handle this. I know ACW is not TalkDesk does not present ACW in the integration, so it doesn't come through. So you can add it at this daily level.
Okay. Now, I want to tell
so-
you this real quick. The system talk desk, it is set so whenever a call is done, it automatically throw the agent on ACW for, I believe, up to 2 minutes or a minute and a half. So if the agent's still working on something and they're not being efficient, they're allowed that to happen. And then if it automatically puts them on available time after the 2 minutes, unless they continue to, put themselves in ACW, but it automatically happens. So if a lot of agents don't go in there and literally just click available, they will stay an average 2 minutes all the time after a call.
Okay, it's 2 minutes, so it's not a minute and a half, not 90 seconds.
So most of them kind of click out of it, but I just want to let you know that that is the norm. I mean, it could be a minute and a half. I'm not too sure. Michael, have you heard anything about that, or David, can you kind of confirm?
I have not.
David, can you confirm at all if that's, because I believe it is 2 minutes. Maybe if he's there. Hello, David.
Oh, David, I believe you're still on mute if you're answering us.
There you go.
Okay. Yeah, I believe it's still on 2 minutes.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I believe it's still at 2 minutes. I haven't heard that it went down. I just have a hard time believing that agents are, going out before the 2 minutes are off. So I would have a tendency to go higher on ACW.
And this is the conversation that you would have right now. Like, what historical trends or historical values do you want to use
Yes.
to generate your projections right now? And of course, now tell me your thoughts on this, because you can go through and add it to the historical data, or we can just put, since the ACW is not coming through the integration, we can just put a blanket ACW value in the forecast at the workload level. And that might be the cleaner way.
Yes. I will.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Sorry,
think.
go ahead, Tony.
Sorry.
Well, I was going to say I like the idea of putting it in the workload level. Since we don't, I hesitate to put it in as validated data since we don't know for sure.
Yeah.
But your validated data should be your source of truth. There should never be you should try to minimize the number of assumptions you're making in it.
Very good. Yeah. No, I'm with you there. Okay. And this is going to be a more streamlined process, at least for now. So, Julio, would you please highlight the validated ACW row? So in the data table, we want to just highlight the entire row. So if you select validated ACW over on the left, just like you're going to highlight a whole row in Microsoft Excel.
Okay. Like that, or just?
No, right there. Yes. Please click that. And then I think we just press delete. That should delete all the values.
Okay. Not dead, but give me a second.
Yeah, just go ahead and use average. That's fine, because the average would be 0.
Okay.
Cool. So now what we've done is we've just wiped out ACW. Now I know ACW is not captured by the integration. We're going to account for that on a different step of this process.
Gotcha. And I'm so sorry. I don't mean to keep interrupting, but I did find out that it's 90 seconds, so it's a minute and a half, not 2 minutes.
That's fine. We can look at both assumptions and see what the difference is on the 30-second average for your forecasted need.
Okay.
You may want to add that additional bit of caution to your forecast and take the 120-second assumption to staff to that. So no worries.
What should I do next? Sorry.
That's okay. Let's go ahead and scroll to, or let's zoom out on the graph all the way, because now all we're looking at is talk time. And I just want to look at those trends over time. So if you press that no smoking sign over on the left, we don't need to go as deep into talk time as we did with call volume. But what I am wondering is what happened in that week in January, and do we need to normalize that? Like the week of January 22nd, maybe?
That needs to be, because that day we were closed. That was I believe
it's a
that's
special event.
and okay, yeah. Am I able to erase that or?
No, the special event is going to take that out of the calculation.
Okay.
If you want to, um, and this is just a visual, but it's not going to matter. If you want to just use a different value there so you can see the correction on the graph, but
Yeah.
it's not going to impact anything.
Can I
So
do average? Use average? I don't know.
yeah, if you want to.
Okay.
So, but it's not.
I got
Talk time does seem fairly steady. It looks like it was a bit higher. Now it's trending a little bit lower. But I'm not terribly worried about where that's going.
you. Okay.
What do you guys think? Oh, let's scroll. Actually, we're missing a month on the graph. Can you zoom all the way out on that graph, please?
That's all.
Okay, yeah, so it's starting to go up a little bit. Any other concerns at all? And again, I'm just looking at the image right now at the graph.
Talk time is not such a concern right now because, of course, ACW is not input in there, but it was before when we didn't quite understood why the ACW wasn't coming through, but now we know that we will have to input that manually. But no, I don't think I have a concern right now with the talk time.
Yeah, and I mean, once we add ACW, that's just going to be a blanket assumption. So essentially, it would just bring these values up 90 seconds. So your curve would remain the same as far as being a little bit lower in November and then a little lower in December and January, and then starting to grow again towards the end of February.
Yes.
So that's fine. Very good. Any other questions before we push into the long-term forecast generation? And are we doing okay? Do you want like a 5-minute pause? I know this is a long meeting.
No, I mean, I'm okay.
Yeah? Okay. Tony.
Sorry for the noise in the back. I just want to apologize right now. Sorry.
No, you're fine. The microphone's just picking you up, so don't worry.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Tony, anything else before we move into selecting our data for the long-term forecast?
No, I think that's good on validation.
Awesome. Can you scroll? Yeah, we don't even need to scroll. Let's go ahead. Are we good to move into the next step, root?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Let's go ahead and press next in the bottom right, please. Okay, and now what we need to do. Actually, Tony, sorry, I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you want to carry through this section for a moment?
Yeah, for sure. Not a problem. Okay, so right now we are selecting what data is going to be feeding into our long-term forecast. So generally speaking, I say at minimum, this should be our last 4 weeks. So what is your current forecasting process? Michael, I know this is like your 3rd week, but have you done a lot of forecasting in your past? What are you familiar with?
Yes. So we've been talking about this, and what we're going to do is we're going to start, because we've been making a lot of adjustments every previous day, which we know that's not the way we should be doing. It's just how it's been recently. We're going to really tighten up and maybe get a month and do that in 2-week increments, so we can have a couple of short-term forecasts. But our goal here in the next month is to get a long-term forecast for a year. I'm trying to get data right now from our previous telephony systems, and hopefully that can help, really more so just to see customer count versus marketing activity, things like that, because our customer count grows significantly each year. So really, yeah, we want to probably do a month right now, and then probably at that sometime during that period do another year. And then what we're going to start doing is then short-term forecasting, and really just keeping everything there so we can learn a lot from it. Yeah, that's kind of what we're going towards. And I don't know, Julio and David, if you have anything to add to that, kind of what we're trying to do.
No, I think that would be great to do it that way.
That makes a lot of sense. But right now, really, we're talking about how much historical data we want to build into that forecast. So when you're looking at a forecast, if we are forecasting for today, for the next 2 months, how much data do we want to take into account? I would say this has to be at minimum 4 weeks. Typically, I like to look at the last couple of months with volume being what it is lately. We may just want to take a look at the last month because that might be more indicative of what we're looking at in the immediate future. Do you guys have an internal process for this, or are we just sort of making this up right now?
No. So we, again, because we don't have that much data, because the data is not even a year yet. What I was using is whatever data I have. So in the beginning, I was using pretty much about 2 months of data. But now the thing that I have, the problem that I have now, if I use 4 weeks, if I use last month data, we had that increase in the beginning due to marketing. So I don't know how great that would be as an
Well, we've
assumption.
controlled for that marketing increase, I believe,
That's
through
true. I think we
relative
were.
data.
Yes, I apologize. We did the average. So yeah, we can do that. 4 weeks.
Let's go ahead then and let's take a look at February and March. So let us, for our historical data here, yeah, perfect. Yeah, let's look through the beginning of February through March 31st. And let's apply.
Let's see if my computer one works.
Sometimes it just takes a little bit. It's thinking.
What I'm wondering here is I know we had looked at the volume patterns and it's like
Oh.
February is what we're
Wow.
expecting and March is a bit lower. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
Maybe I have to close it. Oh no. Okay, close. I can do again, wait for the program, but I think I might have to close it. Yeah, let me just close and reopen it. Oh man, do we have to do this all over again too?
Well, I mean, yeah, this is, I'm wondering. Are you having like an, no, because you're still on here, so your Wi-Fi would still be
Yeah.
intact. I mean, the reality is we made maybe 4 changes on the last screen. We just talked about it a lot, so
Yeah.
not a huge thing, but yeah.
But yeah, if I'm understanding correctly, I think we'll look at the previous 2 months and then build out to future months. I like that plan if I'm understanding that, because we're probably going to be in this reality for the next 2 months, let's say. And if we need to address that through short term, we can.
Perfect. That sounds perfect.
Why is not doing nothing at all? Sorry, guys.
Why do we have 2 separate? Oh, because the one is the actual.
Yeah. Yeah.
I follow.
Yeah. I mean, I gotta somehow close it completely. It's not even working at all. Like I can't even. All right, let's see.
All right, yeah, we'll get back into that. Is strange.
You know, honestly, I think maintaining that remote desktop connection is a little bit more intense than maintaining this video connection. So I have noticed that I think for some of my customers that Citrix connection will drop before the WebEx does.
Gotcha.
Also, I mean, good. Looking forward to the transition to Windows Virtual Desktop, which has already begun.
Yes.
So
Very
you will
excited for that one.
I don't know how they're handling that for all our existing customers, but like new customers are transitioning to that, and it's that's something actually I can look into for you through the service desk, because that Windows Virtual Desktop, um, takes a lot less bandwidth than Citrix.
I don't know what happened, but it put me back on the same screen. But
Are
what?
you still frozen?
Yeah, like, give me a sec. Why would it do that? Because I closed out of everything.
You disconnected.
Signed out.
Yeah, disconnecting is just removing yourself from the session. So it is a different.
So just sign out then and sign back in.
Yeah.
Plus, it doesn't help that I have like 20,000 screens open on my other screens too.
mean, those are your words, not mine, Julio. That's all right. That's your desktop. You
Yeah,
can do as many as you want to.
actually, I only have my laptop in one screen. At work, I have 2 monitors in my laptop, and that's not even enough.
Oh, I have 2 monitors here, but my laptop's like on a docking station, so I just use the 2.
Yeah.
My the RTA team that I used to manage had 4 monitors, and
Oh, wow.
like they loved it. Like they were like the 2 over here, and then the 2 on the right side were like turned portrait, so that they
Yes.
like. Oh,
In a past
like
life, when I
that.
did real time, I had it all set up like a command station.
I mean, it felt like air traffic control, and I would like walk over
does.
to the desk, and I'm instantly anxious. I'm like, can you like drape something over those monitors? There's too much
Yeah.
going on here. But
My boss would march up and demand the sit rep.
I would love that many.
oh no, I have 2. That is enough. 1 would not be enough for me. I'm sure. Listen, I'm sure I could survive on 1.
Yeah, it's just no, I need. See, but before on my previous job at Dish, I had 3 screens, and then you had the phone that rings, and you had to answer for call off. Then you have people coming in to you, talking to you. It was madness.
My very favorite thing, my RTAs would call me in and they would be like, "Hey, we're listening to the sick line voicemails. I found you a good one." Oh boy. Okay, so yeah,
That's not what I want. Sorry.
yeah, we'll go back into prepare workload and then
Good instinct, just a level too high.
I know.
and then we'll change our dates.
Give me 1 second. I think we went first, right? January 1st to
It was September 1st
September 1st. My apologies.
through the end of March.
And then we validated from the beginning of January.
Yeah, through the end of March. That was the compare with period. So that's what we're going to take the average.
And then this was 20.
And now we need to highlight the validated ACW row, the entire row, and do use average.
And then we change, where's it at? The first week of.
Yeah, it was that February marketing push.
Towards the end, yeah. There you go.
There we go.
And that was it.
Beautiful.
Yep. And then next, please don't freeze.
Okay, perfect. So here we are looking at February 1st to March 31st, because this is the data that we are going to build our forecast for the next 2 months off of. Let's hit apply.
Beautiful.
And that went way better this time.
Yeah.
The data that we're looking at. And just to make sure that we do draw attention to it, you can see that this is the data summary of that validated data that we're pulling in. So you can see that that end of February, beginning of March massive spike that we saw isn't here because we're just looking at what we told it is real data.
Yes.
So let's go ahead and hit next here. This is the volume for every month of the year that we're looking at. Since we're only looking at February to March right now, you can see we've got January and April through December are set at that average based off of the 2 months that we're looking at. But we can see February was a little high and March was a little bit, March was actually a little bit closer to that average. And then that dark blue line underneath is our talk time. And of course, the ACW is at 0 because we're not pulling that in. But we can see February was a little bit higher than March. So let's hit next. This is our volume over the our average volume over the weeks of the month or for the period that we're looking at. An important note here, February only has 4 weeks. So when we're talking about week 5 here, we're talking about that very last little bit of March. But based off of this, I would say it's pretty obvious that yeah, your week 1 volume is absolutely the highest, and week 2 is a little bit higher than your average for the month, but still lower than that week 1 volume. And then week 3 and week 4 are your lowest volume over the month. If that sounds right, we'll just go ahead and hit next. This is our day of the week volume on average. Again, with using Brian's Batman curve term, we can see that Monday is much higher. Friday is your second highest volume. It's not quite as high as Monday, but it's up there. So across the 2-month period that we are looking at, this is your average over the week volume. Does that seem about right?
That sounds about right, yes.
Yeah. And down below, we can actually see in the little chart some numeric values too. So if you ever want to dig into the actual granular details, it looks like your volume on Monday is about 170% what it is every other day of the week.
Yeah.
So yeah, you definitely get a pretty significant volume spike. You definitely want to make sure that you have a lot of people staffed on Monday. But let's go ahead and hit next here. So taking a look at this, this is our trend, again, over the period that we're looking at. So from February to March, we definitely did see a decrease here. We have the option to select that use trend button up at the top, but let's not select that. We're just going to go ahead and use this average volume over this period because we don't really know if we're going to keep going down at that exact same level. So we're just going to take our average over these periods.
Now, when do we actually use this? Whenever we have like year or 2 year worth of data?
Yeah, I would say if you're looking at like a year and a half's worth of data at a time, you could probably use that trend button safely. When you're looking at the short term, if you use that trend option, I mean, if this continues for another month and our volume is still going down at the exact same rate, and then we get word that it's probably going to continue for another month, at that point you could probably use that trend option. Okay. But when you're looking at a short-term period, you really don't want to use it because that trend is probably not going to be very predictive.
Gotcha. I'm just trying to understand that right there. That's all.
Yeah. In addition to that, it can also depend, Julio, on the type of skill that we're looking at. So there are skills where, or lines of business where we may anticipate, a slow, sustained growth over time, or, like a slow decommission, where something like a trend is something we want to use. And you may even have a trend assumption like, hey, let's take the historical volume, but give me a 15% growth annually, and apply that right here. You can do that here to take that assumption across these values at a daily level. We can also have a little bit more control on, the trending or the predictions once we open the forecast. Gotcha. So this, if you think back to when we were looking at creating the skill and the workload, when we kept the priority and the over and under staffing toggles right down the middle.
Yes.
What that does is it keeps the historical data translating into the forecast like as clean as possible. This would be the same thing. Let's not use the trend here. Let's get to the forecast, and then we can see what assumptions we want to make. I mean, you could use it, but I would say like 80 to 90% of the time, my clients are not using this on any of their forecasts.
Okay, great. We don't have to use it then.
Okay, cool. Then let's go ahead and hit next here. Right, so this is where we want to pause and take a breather because this is where we're setting the dates that we want to create our forecast for. I think sometimes people can get in the habit of just hitting next through those previous screens. So just make sure when you get to this long-term forecast, when we get to the total tab, we stop and take a second. Okay. So what we want to do first is we want to define the dates that we're making our forecast for. So since we know that we're just looking at the next 2 months, let's create our forecast in our default scenario here.
Sorry. Yes. No, that's okay. Yeah. On this, what I would like to do just as we open is actually go back a couple weeks. So can we start on April 1st? I know we don't usually forecast for the past.
Oh, that was exactly what I was actually going to do. Yeah.
Okay, good. And make sure the scenario is going to be default on this.
Yes. So you guys are familiar with the scenarios, correct?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. We're going to do this in the default just to make sure that we're getting you guys all set up. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to make this a little bit longer than our 2-month period. So our dates here, we're going to set our from to April 1st. We're going to pretend, but we're gonna pretend like we already had April done. Like if we had been doing this process for a little while, our April would have been forecast for last month. But we're going to say we're forecasting for May and June in our real scenario. So let's put this to date to the end of June.
Okay.
And let's hit apply. Okay, so what we see right now in that chart up there is our forecast total calls, and we can see that dark blue line for talk time. Oh my gosh, I just spaced a little bit. Okay, so our special events, one of the things that we want to do here is pay attention to any upcoming special events that we want to include in our forecast. So generally speaking, since we have our holidays set up here, we would be looking for holidays. If you guys created that marketing push special event and you knew you had one coming up, you could designate some of those days as special events as well. But let's see, in this period, April, May, and June, we have Memorial Day. That's the first one, right?
That's the one.
Oh, and guys already have that built in, so we don't need to select anything there. And there's nothing in June for you guys, correct?
No, nothing so far in June.
Okay. Then, give that forecast a once over, take a look. If that doesn't look, ooh, that's interesting. Let's actually go back and take a look at the end of April and see.
End of April.
Yeah. Go ahead and pause. That's cool. I like that little drop there toward the end of the week. So you can see, our first week of the month, we've got a lot more volume, and then it trends down as we go. With that last week of the month, we've got our intraday, or not intraday, sorry, interday pattern, much more pronounced. That Batman is a lot more pronounced. Cool. So if this all looks good, let's go ahead down at the bottom, click Next. And this will take us into our workload day templates, which is, I believe, exactly what Michael was referring to earlier when he was asking about the more granularity. Brian, did you want me to just keep going?
Yeah, definitely. Go ahead.
Perfect. Okay, so in our workload day templates, this is where we're building out our specific intraday templates for our forecast. So right now, the system has an idea of how many total calls it can expect for that day. But right now, we're telling it how to figure out how many calls it can expect at each individual interval.
Gotcha.
So when we're looking at this, our workload day templates, our best indicator of what our next period of time is going to look like in terms of pattern throughout the day is our most recent pattern of time. So here, we may actually want to go ahead and just use that last 8 weeks of historical data. So over on the right-hand side, I know my left from right. Yeah, perfect. Click on that one and just hit Add. And let's go ahead and hit Apply.
We're not
So,
open on Sunday, so that's why you don't have
we don't have anything here for Sundays, so we're just going to go ahead and hit Next and take a look at Monday. And I'm really glad that you know that, because a lot of times people are like, oh God, there's nothing here. And I'm like, you're closed on Sunday. We just had this conversation. Don't worry. Okay, so now we're looking at Monday's volume, and let's see. Oh, this is a pretty high volume queue, but we're going to talk a little bit about smoothing too as well. So over on the right-hand side, you can see we've got a couple of options here for smoothing. So if this was a lower volume queue, you may want to smooth a little bit. And what that will do is it will average your volume across some intervals to reduce the chances that you'll see some volume spikes. So let's take a look at your chart, and we'll take a look at that calls bar, or the calls line, which is that orange one. And you can see at about 3:45, you have a little bit of a drop in your volume. That's totally normal and fine in a high volume queue. All that the system's going to do here is say, okay, we can probably have some more breaks during that interval. If this is a low volume queue, though, let's say that you're expecting 1 call during one interval and 0 calls during the next interval, the system might try to schedule all of your breaks on a particular skill during that interval, and that's pretty bad. We don't want to see that. So smoothing can just help make sure that you're balancing out those low volume queues a little bit better. As this is high volume, I'm not super worried about it. So we've talked about smoothing, and now we're just going to move on from that. But what I do want to show you, just above that smoothing portion, you see that little filter data button?
Yes.
Click on that one for me. So what this does is it pulls up each individual day during that last 8-week period that we're looking at. So we can look for any outliers that we don't want to include in here. So in the example that I gave before of the outage, if your app suddenly stops working, and so you get an unprecedented spike at 3 in the afternoon that you don't normally get because everybody calls in when the app goes down at 3 in the afternoon, we'd want to remove that one. Looking at the data that we have here, I would say let's go ahead and uncheck that 3-2 box and see what that does to our average for the day. It doesn't have a massive impact. We could remove it, and that might be a good idea. It just looks like it dials in that average to a little bit better reflect what you are throughout the day. But that's really what you're looking for, is you're just trying to make sure that you get that big, thick orange line to the best approximation of what your actual averages are over this eight-week period.
Before we close this, I do want to highlight just a little bit, yeah, absolutely, of the functionality. So the template or the average rows all the way over on the left, like Tony mentioned, we can also, if you highlight like abandoned calls or talk time in the data table below, then you'll see, yeah, if you click that, then we should see, let's click talk time. Yeah, you'll see the graph sort of shift from data point to data point. And yeah, I mean, to oversimplify here, you want to make sure your trend line is about in the middle of your sample.
So that's, I'm just looking and see.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, click through, get a feel for it. Generally speaking, you don't ever want to remove more than half of your sample, or else there's not really a point of looking for an average there.
Yeah, I'm just trying to see what on talk time in there drops. So
Well, and if you click on the graph, yeah, if you can hover over it, it tells you the day. If you click on it, I believe it should.
yeah, so that
Yeah.
that's a big drop. And then you have this spikes.
Again, though, we do run the risk of analysis paralysis at this point too.
Yeah.
So
I got you.
a good look at the call volume, and then we can sweep it through because this is still historical data. It is what happened.
Okay.
I would say for the most part, it's most important to make sure that those calls are right smack in the middle. So don't get too bogged down in controlling for your talk time.
Gotcha.
You can also monitor that through just our general assumptions and our validated data. Cool. So if you're okay with this one, I would say go ahead and click OK.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. See,
You
and
just-
thank you for that, because we were not explained that. We told them we were
Okay.
told to just go ahead and deviate all those calls.
Don't worry about that. We are working that out today.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and just repeat that process for the rest of the week. So we're on Monday. Let's take a look at Tuesday.
Real quick,
Yes.
before we move through, I would like to, let's go back to Monday. I want to talk about the smoothing over on the right. So we have, again, now we're using the word deviation on prepare and validation to talk about like variance. This is talking about standard deviations. So on deviation calls, if you could see, the orange line is our staffing line for calls.
Yes.
That's, you know, where it's going to go. If you open up the drop-down menu under deviation, we might not need to use this, but let's open that up and select 3. And what this does is it does change the values, but it spreads your averages across 3 intervals. And so that softens your line a little bit. Once you get into a high volume call or high volume skill, which would be like more than 100 calls per interval, then this happens naturally. And these curves are really not too bad. You can do the same thing for talk time if you'd like to.
Okay.
By just selecting a 3. And you'll see, like, you do have that talk time increasing at the end of the day, which is understandable. Like, that usually happens as call volume decreases. You might stay on the phone a little bit longer. But This curve can be a little bit easier to snap to than the actual. It's up to you if you want to like not use any smoothing or bring this, or bring this in. Of course, it's 3, 5, or 7 intervals is what we're measuring.
I don't think I really want to smooth it, and I'll tell you why. Because we want to get a better understanding of what we need on staffing.
Okay.
And I don't want to smooth it out into a point. I think what we did, the average, is fine. What we were do to kind of, filter the data. But smoothing, I don't want to do that because then that's not going to give me a really sense of how many people I may need. If that makes sense to you, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine. And so if you take the deviation for calls off, you can just select none. Yeah, you'll see. So it goes a little bit up and down, and so the big difference there is like on the scaling of this graph is not huge either. Like you're going, it's like variances of maybe 5 to 3 to 5 calls from interval to interval. So it's not huge, but that is how that functionality works if you would like to use it. But yeah, sorry, we'll just carry through to the end of the week, and I think we'll take the last 15 to go into detailed forecasting. So go ahead, Tony.
Oh yeah, we're just gonna continue that. So we know we don't really want to smooth, but let's go ahead and filter our data and see if there are any Tuesdays that we need to control for. Oh, interesting. So this is a really wide spread, but it looks honestly to me, looking at this one right now, I would say we don't really need to remove any days because we're still generally in the middle of that pretty widespread. You can take days out and see what that looks like if you'd like as well, of course. But
I think it's fine because like you say, it's very towards
yeah,
the
you've
middle.
got a lot of variability with your calls. But let's click through really quickly and just take a look at our abandons, talk time, and ACW too, just to make sure.
Talk time, the 17 seems like, oh, that's not the one I'm looking for. The 7th.
Let's click back on that calls row actually, and let's just see what our calls average looks like now. Yeah, I would say that's still looking really good. Okay. And we can see the impact to our intraday pattern immediately.
Yes.
We're still on Tuesday, so let's go ahead and move on to Wednesday. And rinse and repeat.
Yeah, that the 26.
And that's a much tighter pattern.
I don't know if I should. That's because that's a big. That pattern is like all over the map, though. Interesting. I think. Let me see. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Wow. 27. Excuse me. Sorry, guys. All right. So. Let's see. That 20th looks a little. Yeah, it's about right. I like that. And Friday, let's see. Oh wow.
Ooh.
Towards the end of February, it looks like we were having all kinds of crazy stuff. 6-2. See, but look at that 27 too.
Yeah, but I mean, we can't control
Yeah,
for every
know.
site,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
So I'm trying to see if I really want the. I think that's fine.
And what I would focus on here is not the values as much as the shape of the curve, because that's the most important part here.
Time. That looks open on Saturdays.
Yeah, let's just double check. Okay, nothing there. That's what we want. And then we can go ahead and hit finish.
Woo! Look out. Now, of course, we went into that a lot deeper than you generally would.
Yeah.
Because we needed to go back and forth. And if you could, Julio, now in the visualization on the right, you can see that there's a validation section for skill validation. If you toggle just like into 2021 and then back to 2020 with those little blue arrows.
Yeah. Which
right
one you
here.
want?
Perfect.
That one?
Yeah, just go 2021 and then go back. And then what this will do is you'll see if you hover over that bar, it's been pushed into March. So you can see through March 31st, you have validated your historical data for this skill.
Great.
So now the last step here is to open up the detailed forecast, and we're going to play around in there just a little bit, but that's going to be the spot where we're looking at assumptions, closing, marketing. So yeah.
Gotcha. So open the forecast.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
So the dates we're going to use here are the dates we created our long-term forecast for. And I think that was just Q2, right? April 1st to the end of June.
I believe so.
Perfect. And
Yep.
sorry, Tony, if you want to go ahead and carry it through.
Oh, sure, yeah. Yeah, so we're going to look at April 1st to June 30th. All right. Okay. So our first indicator that we probably want to do something with this is that you see in those template rows all that blue.
Yeah.
Blue means that it's using an old template.
Okay.
Green means that it's using our current template. So let's go ahead and we're going to update both the skill and the workload templates. So go ahead and select that template row.
Oh, the entire thing? Okay.
Yeah, we're going to go ahead and do that. And then up at the top, oh, so you're looking at the workload templates right next to that. Click on the skill templates. Perfect. And we're going to go ahead and apply our standard templates here. And anything that's not green should go ahead and turn green. And that just lets us know that we have now updated all of those days with our most current templates. Right. So we're going to do the same thing for our workload templates, except we're going to be in that workload templates tab. So let's click on that row in the top. Beautiful. We're going to apply our standard.
I need to create a holiday one, right? Too. Oh, I already
Beautiful.
have
That
one.
was our next step. So let's go ahead and scroll to the right here and look for Memorial Day.
That's already there. Well,
and it'll be green, but let's go ahead and select that row. Yep, and you have your holiday one. Perfect. See, you know what to do. All right. I barely even had to do anything here.
And then what you'll notice here, Julio, is now when we talked about this at the beginning, the workload is where your call volume is, your talk time. That's where we're working with all of that data. But the skill is what's connected to the agent. So that's where the hours are coming through. When we made that holiday change for May 25th for Memorial Day, in the skill data table down below, you can see that now the total calls and hours including shrinkage are all set to 0 because we have said that that the skill is closed on this day. So then the scheduler is not going to place anything there.
That's great.
Righty. But I really think, I mean, the templates are pretty straightforward. That's really all we have here. Brian, did you have anything?
Yeah, so I think what we can do is let's go ahead and go back to the home row, please, and let's bring the skill and the workload to a weekly level. Because right now we're looking at our forecast.
This is weekly right here?
No, that's intraday. If you go to the left, it'll be weekly. So this is the daily view and this is the weekly view. So because what we're looking at, if I'm not mistaken, is call volume for like the next couple weeks, maybe 2 to 4 weeks. So if you scroll to the left on the workload table up top, please, Julio, we are in week 16 right now. So we're really, week 17 is next week. So like weeks 18, 19, and 20, do we have any assumptions or anything that we want to place on there? Because these values are based on, these values for total calls are based on your historical data. And all the curves that we've set up, day of week, week of month, intraday, everything can be, everything is carried down level by level. I know we talked a little bit about this last week, but if you make a change at the monthly level, it carries down weekly, daily, and intraday. If you make a change at the weekly level, it carries down. So what, you're probably in a little bit of an ad hoc forecasting model at the moment. So what are we using? Like, what do you have an anticipated call volume? I know we talked about assumptions last week and entered some of those in to see them reflected. But this is where we would make that happen.
Well, that's the problem. Mike might be weighing in on this for David, but because of the COVID-19, it's a little bit. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's okay actually. But before we get there, I apologize. Can we bring the workload, just the workload, back to the daily level? Because the last thing that we need to do, and this is a new step in your process, so that's this skill.
That's the skill. That's the skill. I gotta get used to this.
Don't worry, you're fine. So you have a forecasted and an actual set of data in this top table. You can see that labeled on the left. Now we don't have anything for your forecasted ACW because we don't have anything coming through historical, but we need to add that. So if you go into that ACW field right there, the top one, and then just go into the first of April, that cell, and then just type 90.
What does he want me to do?
Just type 90 for 90
Okay.
seconds. That's your average. And then copy that with Control C and then highlight the entire row and just press Control V. And what we should see is a little bit of an increase on that hours including shrinkage at the bottom. And we did. So what you're doing here is you'll see, and it didn't paste on the weekends because you're closed, but by adding that 90 seconds per call, that forecasted hours value did increase quite a bit, and we expected it to.
Yes.
Let's save in the upper left, and then and then proceed. That was the piece that we needed to handle before we moved forward. And you can see that if you're looking at that at a weekly level, monthly, whatever, this is an average value. So
yes. We actually yesterday we were a little slower than what we normally would be on Monday, so I'm expecting for call volume to be a little slower. Mike, what do you think? By looking at the or David, what do you think? Because I know that yesterday was a little bit slower than what we normally would have on Tuesdays and Mondays.
It's been trending a little bit slower, but it's hard to tell, with the COVID and depending on how many people have called already, whether it will spike when there's new announcements or things of that nature. It's really kind of in a flux, but I mean, I wouldn't put, a lot of confidence in either making a little bit higher or a little bit lower.
Yeah.
So it is, I mean, it is important to have the discussion and understand why your projections are going to be what they are going forward. However, for purposes of our call,
yes,
it's important that you know where to do that in the product.
Gotcha.
So as far as what you're doing and what those numbers are going to be, you guys can talk about that when we're finished in about 10 minutes.
Gotcha.
But what you're going to do with them is important. So for example, let's, can we bring the skill to a daily level while keeping the workload on a weekly level? So the skill table, I'd like to bring to a daily level. And let's just play with week number 19, which is the week of 5/3.
It's this
So
one, right?
that's week number 17. Week number 19.
19, my bad. Sorry. I'm looking now.
You can scroll on the bottom with the skill data table, just so we can have that we can view. Okay, perfect. So what we're looking at here is, again, our fully loaded, our hours including shrinkage. We've got about 450 on Monday, about 365 on Friday, but we can see that those values are following the curve we'd expect. Like it's the lowest on Wednesday.
Yes.
But now, as opposed to saying about 12,000 calls, let's go ahead and use our campaign call percentage. I want to show you a couple things. Let's just say we're going to go 50% below that. So if you just put minus 50.
50 or 15?
50, 50. I want the math to be obvious. And then press enter. or tab or just that. So now you can see your hours, including shrinkage, 223 on Monday, 183 on Friday. Like we still have that dip, where like Monday's high and then it gets a little bit lower. We don't have quite the peak because I'm guessing because that's the first week of the month, and we have more peak as we carry on through the month. But that takes that entire curve and just brings it down. Let's go ahead and delete that value. And as opposed to using a percentage, so that campaign call value, yeah, let's delete that because this is your forecast, so I don't want to mess with it too much. Now, if you just, press, or you can type 0 is fine. Now, if you highlight the calls value, which is at the very top of that data table, and then if you right click, you can select modify selection. Now, again, this is at a weekly level. You could do it at a monthly level. You could do it at a daily level. So right here, maybe you want to modify this by just entering a new total. Like, let's just do a blanket assumption. We're going to get 8,000 calls. Okay. And then you can press OK. And what that does is it carries it down. We can see again, those forecasted hours have changed, our daily call totals have changed, but that curve is still intact because regardless of if we're getting 12,000 calls or 8,000 calls, we're expecting probably 30% of those to come in on Monday.
Yes.
Because the behavior is not going to change, but the volume could.
Gotcha.
Let's go ahead and modify that selection once more. All right. Let's press reset. No, let's press cancel. Let's just close and reopen this because I don't want to save those changes. I know we've already saved once, which is good. We'll just close and press no, and then we will open the forecast. It will remember your dates and scenario. And the view will remain intact as well. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and do that.
Oh, apologize. We did need to do. Okay, so
No,
I'm
you're
sorry.
fine. You're
I
good.
thought saved along the way, and we hadn't. So that's my.
No, you're fine. This is something that I familiar with, anyways.
So to apply the workload templates, the workload needs to be at a daily level. Right now, it's on a weekly level.
Right, and then
There you go.
Standard
And then we can close on Memorial Day, enter the 90 seconds for ACW, and then save. So your ACW, you can even bring that up to, yeah, you can do it at a daily level. That's just fine. And now let's save, because this is the point where we wanted to save. My apologies.
You're fine.
Okay. And much like when we were in prepare workload, we have the original rows, which come through the integration for talk time, call volume, and then we have our validated row, which is like after we have normalized the data, added our special events, like that validated row is what gets carried through into the forecasting process. Good so far?
Yes.
When we look at the forecast, we have a similar workflow. So you can see we have 9 rows in that forecasted workload table. We have calls, campaign call percentage, talk time, campaign talk time percentage, and so on. Now, those first 6 rows are based on the historical data that was just evaluated and translated into our long-term forecast daily totals through prepare workload. But now the total rows, total calls, total talk time, and total ACW are what get translated to the skill level, which is the table below. So a good way to visualize this is, let's go back into that campaign call percentage cell for week 19, just for week 19. And let's type 50% here.
Negative or just 50?
Let's do positive. Yeah, let's do an increase this time. So what you can see is that that top row, our calls are still at about 12,000. But since we have a campaign call percentage, we're going to say this is our forecast, but increase it by 50. That's what we want to forecast for. So the total calls row is about 18,000. And that 18,000 calls is what gets carried into the skill and into the forecast, which is why at the very bottom of the screen, we're looking at 673 hours on Monday, as opposed to the around 400. So the reason I like to leverage this campaign call percentage row is because you still have visibility on the original value that your forecast generated.
Yeah.
And it's up to you. I mean, you can use that field however you'd like to.
Yes.
You want to just go ahead and hard enter a call total, you could use the modify selection, or you can just type it into this like a spreadsheet. I mean, essentially anything that is light gray is going to be based on, you know, a formula or some other back-end process, and anything that's black, you can make an entry here.
Gotcha.
So I apologize. I know we're getting to the end of our session. I feel like it was jam-packed, but I mean, this is essentially the end of the process, but what questions, and I can stay on for a few more minutes if we do have some questions at this point. But that's
Actually, yeah, everything that you taught me or taught us is what I needed, honestly. It is definitely in depth of what I wanted to know. It gives me a way better understanding of this tool and how we can utilize it to, you know, to mold it to our call volume and what we're expecting. So I don't have any questions unless Mike or David have questions about it.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, no, this has been a lifesaver. Thank you so much. You guys have really helped us out a lot. I feel, you know, the same as Julio, would like really have a good grasp of this. And I would say any other questions we want to get into, we'll probably schedule like professional services. You know, probably request Tony. So you know, look out for that. And no, I mean, I think there's a lot of things we can dig into, but I'm really I'm being told that we might have our historical data saved off somewhere. And then also I'm really going to get into the marketing forecast that we have in the past and in the future. So I think, yeah, this has been perfect, but we'll be scheduling more with you.
So what we can do is I'm going to send, I do have a CSM to introduce, but then Mike, you and I are meeting tomorrow. So when we meet tomorrow, let's really talk about the path forward here, because even if it's just a few hours, like that's something that Tony or I or both of us can definitely handle. And, you know, like provide some assistance. Once we get into like a few days, that's when we go into professional services. But what we can do is just coordinate that through your CSM and us to make sure that you have what you need. Because yeah, if you do have like some better historical data, it would probably take us about an hour to run through like taking a different set of data that's not in the integration, plugging it in and moving forward with that. So that's totally fine. Let's we'll touch on that tomorrow. In the meantime, yeah, I'll send the intro email for the CSM for Ty. But yeah, then you and I will talk tomorrow. That's cool.
Perfect. Anything from you, David?
I'm good. It was very informative, Brian. Thank you very much, Brian and Tony.
You're welcome. Oh, and I'm
welcome.
end the recording right now.